The moment I heard the sound, I knew something was terribly wrong, but I did not yet understand how bad it really was. It was just supposed to be a normal evening, quiet, calm, nothing unusual. And then everything changed in seconds. Before I tell you what happened, make sure you subscribe to Karen's Stories Daily, because this story is one you will not forget. My daughter is 15. She is smart, kind, and the type of kid who never looks for trouble. That day she was just outside near the front of our property doing nothing more than talking on her phone. Live in a place where land is spread out. Private space matters here, and everyone knows exactly where property lines area. At least they showed. Karen had been a problem for months, always watching, always complaining, always acting like she controlled everything around here. Even though she had no authority over our land, who had already dealt with letters, warnings, and small arguments. Nothing serious, but enough to know she did not like being told. Not that evening. I was inside when I heard raised voices outside. First, I thought it was just another argument, maybe Karen complaining again about something small. Then I heard my daughter say, "Please stop." That is when I moved. He stepped outside and saw Karen standing near the edge of our property, yelling about boundaries, rules, and respect. My daughter was standing a few steps back, confused and clearly uncomfortable. I told Karen to leave immediately. She did not. Instead, she kept talking, louder, more aggressive, like she wanted a reaction. He stepped forward again and said, "This is private property. You need to go now." That is when everything escalated. Reached into her bag. At first, I did not even process what was happening. It did not make sense. Then I saw it, and before I could react, there was a loud sound that echoed across the entire. Everything froze for a second. I could not even breathe. Then I saw my daughter fall. At that moment does not feel real. Even now it felt like time slowed down and everything around me disappeared. He rushed forward, my heart racing faster. Then I thought possibly echoing her name again and again. She was conscious but scared and in pain. That is a feeling no parent should ever experience. At the same time, something else happened to me. Wife had just vetted. My wife is not just anyone else. Is a federal marshal. She saw everything. The moment she understood what happened, her entire presence changed. Not panic, not confusion, just focus. Moved fast, controlled, and precise. Secured the situation immediately and called it. Karen, who just moments ago was shouting, now looked completely different. Confidence was gone, replaced by fear and shock. She tried to speak, but nothing came out clearly. My wife handled everything like she was trained to do, making sure my daughter was safe while also making sure Karen could not move anywhere. Within minutes, sirens filled the air. Emergency responders arrived and took over. Medical crews stayed with my daughter the entire time, holding her hand, trying to keep her calm, telling her everything would be okay. Even though my mind was still trying to understand what had just happened, officers secured the area and began asking questions. But this was not a normal situation. Beckhouse, there was a federal officer who witnessed everything directly. That changed everything immediately. Karen was taken into custody. Right to her. No arguments, no delays, just quiet compliance. The same person who acted like she controlled everything was now standing there with nothing to say us. The ambulance left. I felt a mix of emotions I cannot fully explain, for anger, disbelief, but also something else, a clarity base. I knew this was not going to be handled like her previous behavior. This time there would be real consequence, and this time she had gone too far. What happened next was something even she never expected. After the ambulance left and the noise faded, the silence felt heavy in a way I had never experienced before. I stood there watching everything unfold, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. My wife stayed focused the entire time, speaking with officers, giving clear statements, making sure every detail was recorded exactly as it happened. There was no confusion, no doubt, because she had seen everything with her own eyes. Karen was no longer loud, no longer confident. She looked completely broken, standing there, unable to even look at anyone. As officers treated the situation seriously from the very beginning. This was not a misunderstanding, and it was not something that could be explained away within hours. The case moved forward faster than anything I had ever seen, because when something like this happens, and there's a direct federal witness, everything changes. Immediately at the hospital, my daughter was stable. That was the only thing that mattered in that moment. Hearing that she was going to recover was the first time I could breathe again. But even with that relief, the reality of what happened stayed in my mind. Simeon crossed a line that should never exist. The next few days were intense. Investigators came, statements were reviewed, evidence was collected. There was no way for Karen to deny anything. Everything was clear and documented. The case quickly moved into federal attention because of my wife's role and the nature of what happened. At Karen tried to build a defense, but it fell apart almost immediately. There was no justification, no explanation that could change what she did. The community reacted fast. People who once supported her stepped away completely. No one wanted to be associated with what had happened. At the HOA tried to distance itself as well. They released statements claiming they had no connection to her actions, but it was to Lady Ryan knew who she was, and how she had behaved before when the court process began. The atmosphere was completely serious. There was no room for excuse. Every detail was presented clearly. From the history of her behavior to the exact moment, everything escalated. My wife testimony carried weight not just because of her position, but because of how precise and clear it was when she spoke. The entire room listened. Karen sat there quietly, no longer the person who once acted like she controlled everything. Judge reviewed everything carefully, and when the decision came, it was firm. There were consequences. That could not be avoidable consequences that would follow her for the rest of her life, because actions like that do not disappear. The stay after everything was over, life slowly started moving again. My daughter recovered step by step, stronger every day, and that was all I cared. A Booth house felt different, but also safer in a strange way, because now there were clear boundaries that no one would ever cross again. Karen was gone from the community completely. No return, no explanation, just gone, and people learned something from it. Power does not give anyone the right to harm others. Rules do not stand above basic human respect. In the end, this was not just about what happened that day, it was about understanding limits and making sure they're never ignored again. If you made it this far, share your thoughts in the comments and send this story to someone who believes in standing up for what is right.